Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Welcome to Grain Gab, a show where we sit back and gab about what's on our minds and what's going on with the grain markets and how it's affecting you, our producer, and just what are we going to do about it. Look, the grain markets are ever moving, crazy, and downright emotional. I guess I'd put it in the crazy camp right now as guys are going to the field. That's why we're here to sit back, look at things holistically, find a strategic yet grounded approach to handling the obstacles that the market give us. I'm Lori Nelson, your host, and with me is Kristin Steen. How's it going today, Kristin?
You know, Lori, I'm curious as to if you're talking crazy as in the markets as guys get going into the field, or are you referring to my life right now as my husband is no longer in my house? He's out busy in the field. If you're listening, Luke, come back. Hurry, get done with planting. I need you back. He's one of those awesome husbands that truly helps around here. And yeah, chaos is upon us. So
Is he wearing his bibs today?
no, we're not going to talk about bibbed overalls. We're here to talk about grain markets, not farmer apparel.
Yes, we are. So last time we talked about how to identify risk and opportunities and what it means to your profitability of your farm. So now that we've established a break even and profitability scenarios, we've got that put together. How do we tie the two together? So today, as we talk about establishing a marketing plan, how can we all put that in place, Kristin?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is the next step, right? And we've been going through all these steps. I think one of the first things that we want to recognize in all of this is that third piece, establishing it. And there's a few different questions we always want to be checking ourselves on as we're starting to think about pulling the trigger. And those questions are, is the price profitable? Is it a strong price historically? And what's your bias? And so those are some items that we're going to start rolling through here. We haven't necessarily determined that the market is above profitability, but we've at least determined what that profitable number looks like. Now let's really start to dig into what about our bias of the market, right? Not to say that we know where the market's going to go, but it's more of like we've talked risk and opportunities. Now what's at play in this market? So let's kind of dig into that. What are the few things? What are a few of the things that we're watching right now?
Do you have enough
And chaos.
time? Yeah, have enough time in your
Yeah.
day to take a look at all
What
of
do we got for a time on this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think just here lately, tariff conversations and how does that unroll with trade and, exports and what does that look like going forward?
Yeah.
And we don't know.
I mean, and truly, that's the big elephant in the room. The good news is, if you would have told me that we were going to have 125% tariffs on China, the PTSD would have been hitting pretty hard, right? Taking us back to 2018 and 2019 when we were at like an low $8 to $9 bean range, not $10. And we have held strong support on that number. So that is really, really positive. And we can kind of get into the whys of what that is. But this is still a big conversation. There's been a 90-day pause on all the other countries because they've kind of come back to the table saying, hey, we're willing to negotiate. And now there's this, shall I call it a Hollywood moment? Right? Where it's like just playing all the drama and who's going to end up coming out on the top side. Who the heck knows? I have a bias towards America because I'm, pro-American and all that, but we'll see how that all goes. And all of that affects the markets in a big way, right?
But I also think is helpful is when you look at the US dollar, that's come down 100 points from 100 points there. And that's offered some export activity here the last couple weeks. We've seen some corn exports to just some different locations that we typically don't see. We did see a little bit of soybean export to unknown last week. So typically we'll see those soybean exports taper off this time of year because the South America crop is coming to town. US dollar has given great stability, do I say, to the export piece right now.
Yeah, and kind of back to that, right? Tariffs affect all markets, not just commodity markets. And so it has also affected the dollar index market as well. We've seen that climb back. In other areas, that can be negative news for commodities. To your point, that's a really good thing. It makes us look cheaper to the rest of the world. And if you don't have tariffs slapped on top of you, all of a sudden We were already price competitive, especially on the corn side. Now we're becoming even more price competitive. When you compare that to South America, to what you were saying earlier, that's a huge deal as well because they have been coming out with some bang buster crops, right?
Yeah. The crop condition scores on their soybeans are above that 5-year average, and looks like corn harvest is just progressing really well for them
Yeah.
too.
It's going good on that end. And so we want to continue to stay in this market. We don't want to lose that market share. That's going to be a big thing. Back into now what's going on in our world. So we talked a lot about demand there, and those were the big elephants in the room on the demand side. What's up with supply? Because that's the other half of the balance sheet.
Right. Right now, you look at the U.S., drought monitor, Kristin, and east of the Mississippi seems to be fairly wet. West of the Mississippi, where we're fairly dry, corn planters are definitely rolling. And those are just unknowns that we don't know how this is going to play out this year for us.
If we start to see rain in the forecast, plant in the dust, the bins will bust. If not, this could look really ugly, right?
Right. We've talked about the weather here, but also as, we watch this weather, you start looking at planting progress. We've got 4% planted on corn and 2% planted on beans. And so guys are starting to step out into the field and place those seeds to, really look at 95 million acres of corn to be planted and 83 million acres of soybeans to be planted. Okay, you're looking at that ratio of what, 2.1? Do we see a little bit more corn possibly to be planted as we step into the next couple months here?
Yeah. Especially when you look at that drought monitor, okay, and look at the areas that have good soil moisture, we'll call it. Look at the areas that are getting planted right now in corn and in beans. And those also happen to be the acres where a lot of the increase in corn acres are coming from because cotton was the big loser in the March 31st report. Okay. And they're not going to beans, they're going to corn. And talking to some of the guys down there, they're getting finished with their corn planting right now. And there's been a conversation of, can I flip a few more acres over from beans to corn because planting went well, conditions are still there. Profitability is still heavy on the corn side right now. So 95 million acres could look higher. We'll see how that goes going into that as well. And that is going to be so vital when it comes to this balance sheet conversation, especially on corn in particularly, because we are tight on this balance sheet, right? We're tight on stocks on corn. So if we start to see dry weather or we start to have delayed planting, or I don't know what the story is going to be as far as this goes, do we see a little bit of that seasonal pop?
Well, we should typically come into that seasonal pop. Looking at this chart here, we tend to see some higher type markets as we move through April, May, June timeframe is typically what we see. Given an opportunity to be able to tap on your door and say, hey, don't be asleep here. Be looking for sales, be having your targets working while you're busy in the fields here.
I could not emphasize what you just said there anymore. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. I mean, if we count this up, June had 6, May had 3, and April had 1. That's 10 years out of the last 20 that the high has been in. Basically, we're halfway through this month and the next 2 months. The high for new crop corn, mind you. Okay, now is the time to be engaging in this market. Now is the time to be sitting there and saying, where do I want to be selling and how much, right? And part of the reason for that is we're not the only ones that see that seasonal chart. We're not the only ones that are sitting there weighing, okay, is there going to be an oversupply, but we're short on stocks, and here's what's going on with the weather, here's what's going on with planting season, so on and so forth. The funds are doing the same thing. They were really close to a record long, meaning they didn't have much more that they could buy into this market to keep that momentum going higher. They did a pretty good sell-off in that late February into March timeframe, where now they're sitting there and saying, all right, let's see how this thing progresses. Now we're at a point that if we do get some concerning news by way of the market, we can buy back into this market. Or if all things go off without a hitch, right? If we truly are in a neutral, we're not La Nina where we're super hot and dry, we're not El Nino where we're cold and wet, that's good growing conditions. Sell the pants off of it. We're going to have plenty of corn. right? Or flip a coin on beans as well. The same could be said there. And so we want to be prepared either way that way.
So having targets in place as you get busy, then, Kristen, you like this slide. You talk about this slide.
I geek out over this slide and everybody else is like, what's wrong with you? So here's why I geek out on it. There is back to that question that we originally had. Is it a strong price historically? And we always want to look at that stocks to use ratio because it's showing us what we're using versus what we're sitting on. This plots it out versus the average farm price. And then you can see there's a little bit of a trend line in there. So on corn, we're fairly priced, right? Maybe we get some volatility that we start pushing a little bit higher than that because we think we're going to be shorter on stocks, but this is a decent price. Keep that in the back of your mind. On beans, back to that balance sheet, the world ending stocks to use ratio, we are the third highest in stocks to use ratio. We are the highest in any stocks. All that's saying is that thank God we have good demand, or else it'd be an absolute nightmare. And even then, when we're considering our stocks to use and what we're using compared to what that price is typically, there's a little bit of wiggle room down below. So are we a strong price historically? You could probably check the box off to that.
On both.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, what does that mean? So we've gone through, is it profitable? Is it a strong price historically? Check. What's our bias? I don't know if you got a bias based off of what we were saying here because we talked both sides and what that looks like and what could be at play. We think that here in the short term, we might have some opportunities to push higher. That means if we do have that, we better be pulling the trigger. Okay. And what does that look like? Well, it's having a game plan. Nobody goes to the Super Bowl, or I should reference it back to March Madness because that was the most recent thing. Nobody makes it to that championship game, let alone the Final Four, let alone the Sweet 16, without having a game plan. And with a game plan comes both offense and defense. Sure, we can be strong on one and maybe a little bit weaker on the other, but the teams that truly win are the ones that are honed in on both. And that looks like having targets in place. How many bushels am I going to sell and at what price? And it's actually going to fill if I get there. And then having that defense. How does my options and my crop insurance marry together to, if these targets don't fill, I have a safety net? Because we know that if we don't spend much time with where we're at on corn or beans, this $4.50 level on corn and $10 level on beans or $10.50, we don't spend a lot of time just chilling there. We're either well above or well below this thing. And so if we're well above, I'm going to have targets working to take advantage of that above. And if we're well below, I'm going to have a floor in place because at the end of the day, my focus is on profitability to my farm. And so I want to stay focused on that.
Well, Kristen, I think you shaped that up very well. I think next time it probably looks like we're going to be discussing options and crop insurance, more of on the defense. So get your targets in place, get a floor, subscribe. So if you want to hear more. So thanks for joining us on this episode of Grain Gab.
Hey, no thanks. Excuse me. Everybody is waiting for the lighter side of this now too, because I just went on a rant and nobody came here to hear the rant. They came here to learn more about Lori. So, in tune of the season, how and when did you find out the Easter Bunny wasn't real? Or did they have the Easter Bunny back then?
Oh, we were always scared of the Easter Bunny. He's just kind of a scary dude, you know?
Do you have a picture of like you sitting on the Easter Bunny? Just like,
No, we never went. It was
I'm going to have to touch base with Mama Lynch and see if there's any photos for that.
No, we didn't have time to do that. It was spring. So,
We were busy milking cows and planting corn.
yeah.
Fair enough.
So, oldest of 7. So, I was probably second grade before I really realized that there wasn't an Easter Bunny.
Is that because you never got to go see him, so you never got to like take the hat off and see what was underneath?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So staying on the family history side of things here, what is the strangest thing you know about your family history?
Our family history. Oh, we didn't take vacations.
That was strange. Okay. We were planting corn and milking cows. Come on, we got to get after it.
Yeah, if we had an afternoon to go to the county park, that was a great day.
And we won't ask what happened at the county park. We'll leave that up for your imagination. So, On that note, now you can enter into saying bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Grain Gab. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps our algorithms. Thanks for Paige and the Insights team for making us look good. Until next time, keep your head up and feet grounded. Cheers.
Cheers.